but maybe there was a movie out there based off of a tiny chapter of an old book that maybe expanded into something that you would want. The Last Voyage of the Demeter, also known as Dracula on a Boat. You went out of your way to see the only big movie that came out this week, I guess. We did Gran Turismo because of the early screenings, but this is what everything cleared its way for. And then didn't even get the IMAX or the Dolby. That went back to Barbie and Oppenheimer. The Last Voyage of the Demeter. It's playing in your rinky-dink theater in the back, but it is the new movie of the week with a stacked cast and a director who I really like, dude. This guy has done a couple of very interesting movies. We talked last week. The underrated Autopsy of Jane Doe. I think Troll Hunter, especially when it was on Netflix, was doing a lot of good stuff. And really good graphics, or visual effects, sorry. I'm still in the video game mind. Of Mortal, scary stories to tell in the dark. What did you think of this 2-hour journey?
I mean, Last Voyage of the Demeter is not exactly the kind of genre that tends to appeal to me. I'm not super into the monster movie stuff, into Dracula movies, although I do think that Dracula on a Boat, as you alluded to, would have been a much more appealing title. Maybe would have done a little bit better at the box office with that title, but nonetheless, I don't know. I just found the movie to be a little bit like dreary and like self-serious and not that I'm looking for something necessarily like to be campy or ridiculous, but I didn't really find pleasure in watching it. The way that it sort of ends up being this like it sort of slowly decimating their crew in this contained space. I got a little bit impatient with it, especially at that full 2 hours. It kind of feels like they're setting up this conflict, and then you're kind of waiting for it to ultimately crescendo, and based on, who is a more famous person, who's a person you might have recognized from another TV show or movie that they've been in, they may or may not make it towards the end, the final couple scenes, right? Like, I just think that there's no sort of like stakes or suspense in a movie that is largely built around the idea of suspense, which is a shame because I do think it like mostly looks really good and it's really acted well. Like our boy Corey Hawkins is great in it, I just like I never really felt like I was along for the ride.
Yeah, like I said, it's 2 hours. I think they should have cut it. I don't understand why when you have a short story, which really is what it is, it's a short chapter, if I'm not mistaken, of the Dracula story where they're like transporting the body from one point to another. I think that's really interesting to do. Mm-hmm. I'm not even against the idea of adapting a short story into a feature because some of the best, such as Stephen King's novella that then got turned into The Shawshank Redemption. But there's nothing in that movie I would cut. That is a tight movie. This could have gotten rid of 30 minutes and it would have been better. Like you put it, the stakes and the climax should have gotten there faster. There should have been a moment where you just set everybody up and then you just have it just, the monster tearing through everybody there. There's like an element of it that almost wants to be like The Thing, where you're almost wondering like who could it be, or at least that's what the cast is playing. But you as the audience already know that's not the case. You're just kind of along for the ride, especially with the way the movie begins. I will say, while yes, you do know Corey Hawkins as the lead is going to be the one that to stay a bit, I do think they have some pretty brutal kills. They go the lengths to some of these that I was not expecting. I was like, oh, they don't usually do that in a movie, and they went for it. I want to give a shout out to this kid who you already know from a couple of movies. I was going to
ask.
It's the boy, dude, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, because if I remember correctly, he's your reason for not really vibing with Come On, Come On. Maybe not Woody Norman himself, but his character.
Woody Norman, right?
Yeah, Woody Norman.
Woody Norman was in Come On, Come On, and he played it perfectly. He got cast to play an annoying kid. He showed up to work. In Demeter, he's got these like really creepy like he's just got this almost like a doe like look, and as he's going around the ship that's all supposed to be like lit in moonlight, he's like the only innocent one aboard, which you also know again, like there's stakes but there's no stakes. It adds that element of like, yo, he's the only innocent pureblood on here, which means the moment they get an inkling of his blood, like this Dracula figure's gonna go crazy. He was also recently in this movie. Have you heard of Cobweb?
Yeah, that's got my girl Lizzie Kaplan in it.
Have you seen it yet?
I have not, because I've not heard great things about it.
Look, I think it's better than Demeter. I think it's very mixed, and the things that people are mixed on, I think maybe because I already went in knowing that it was going to go crazy in the second half, he kills his performance in this movie. I think that he's just been getting better and better in everything that he's in, and even if,
All right.
like you were saying with Come On, if the character or the role doesn't vibe with you, that is irrelevant to the work this kid is putting in. And I think the same thing happens in Demeter. I think when he comes in there, he is going full throttle in terms of just kind of being the one who guides our main characters around the ship. He's the one who kind of sets all the location. And I wish we got to, I don't know, have more intimate moments with them, because the moment that the bodies start getting counted up, you don't really care.
Yeah.
But then for what's supposed to be a bottle film, they kind of hype it up to be something that would have sequels. This is something that from the Pope's Exorcist, where you're like, oh yeah, we got an older actor here. It's not going to extend to something else. And then they go, there's a lot of sequels we can make. Demeter ends the same way. I thought there was a moment that they were going to reveal a character as being Van Helsing, because I'm like, there's no reason we're still following you, bro.
Right.
And it's just there to set up like another voyage in the Demeter, even though this is the last voyage. So
I feel like it's a particularly egregious form of like to be continued. You know, most movies nowadays that are IP will at least hint at future things that can be explored, but this was really like a ... not any kind of conclusive statement. It doesn't feel, it feels like an episode of a show in a way, almost the way that it ends. Like that was our intro, and now we're getting into the series. I saw somebody who said that like this would have actually been the best starting point for their Warner Brothers Dark Universe, and like that would make sense to me, because it feels like we're starting something, that's going to continue, even though I don't know if they're actually going to make more of these movies.
So one of the things is, you mean Universal? The Universal Monsters, right?
Sorry, my bad, yes.
Because when DreamWorks came out at the front, we were so confused. Because we associate DreamWorks with, like, happiness. Right. Dreams. But, yeah, that's kind of what they have this under. And you're right. I don't know how many times they're going to restart that universe as well. But I think that would have been interesting if you were going to make this, like, an interconnected thing. Because you're right. The way that it ends, it's not that schlocky horror, oh, no, the hand is still alive. Oh, no, the eye still opens. It is dialogue, and until the end of my days, I will find you and I will scour through it. I'm like, I don't know what we're doing here, bro. This looks like a companion piece to The Haunting in Venice, and I just expected it to be one outing. It's usually what the guy's been really good at making. I don't hate it. That's what sucks. I think it does a lot of very good, as a very eerie mood to it. I don't think it's shot terribly. I think the performances are great, even with Miss Nightingale, who you had shouted out early on. I did not recognize her until I saw her. Aisling, she's always really good in what she's in. David Dastmalchian, I think, does his stuff, as well as like the co-captain. You have some really, obviously because of just his voice, but the homie from Game of Thrones comes in and is giving these like really big speeches. He also has this performance where when someone gets attacked, he refuses to believe it. I'm like, oh, you see, we have these moments here that we could really push on. It's like one of like 3 minutes in a 2-hour movie where you get that, and then the rest of it you're just waiting for them to like count down. I do not know the names of half the bodies that left in this movie, and I don't think the objective was reached for anybody by the end of this voyage. So Last Voyage of the Demeter, I think when it hits Peacock, I think some people will be entertained for 90 minutes of its 2-hour runtime.
Yeah. I don't know. I'm not sure if this is one that I'd recommend. I know there are some people out there who are enjoying it, but yeah, I guess it is like if you can catch it for free on Peacock, then maybe it's worth the adventure, but it's not one that I wouldn't circle the calendar or anything like that.
But Zach, if you could leave to catch this in the new Paris theater that is getting recliners and a 4K,